An elderly woman with a limp was crossing the street with her purchases when suddenly her shopping bags tore apart. A driver began honking impatiently, but a kind-hearted homeless boy rushed over to assist her. Agnes Wilbert despised the effects of aging. Her physical abilities had declined and her body was constantly in pain. Her vision had faded, and there were mornings when she struggled to rise from her bed. However, her mind remained sharp. Her mind was clear as a bell, and she knew that the old woman in the mirror was who she was now. Yes, she hated being old, and most of all, she hated how her body betrayed her at the worst times. That afternoon, Agnes had gone shopping for groceries. Usually, she phoned in her order, but Mr. Mario, the shop owner, was short-staffed. So, Agnes took her cane and her shopping bag, and off she went. She shortened her shopping list down to the essentials, so she wouldn't have to carry too much weight home. Agnes managed to make it to the store without any difficulties, but returning home proved to be a different story. The route back involved crossing a busy street with a pedestrian crossing and a traffic light. By the time Agnes reached the crosswalk, she was exhausted and felt her age, every one of her 77 years. Despite making 3 attempts, she couldn't bring herself to cross the street and kept retreating back to the sidewalk. The cars were speeding by so fast that she was afraid she wouldn't have time to cross before the traffic light turned green again. Finally, she gathered her courage in both hands and started crossing. She leaned her weight on her cane with one hand and carried the bag in the other. It was so heavy. To Agnes, it seemed that the road she was crossing was endless. Her feet moved sluggishly, and despite her best efforts, she couldn't pick up her pace. Suddenly, the traffic light changed and the car horns began to blare, making Agnes even more anxious. She tried to quicken her steps. At that moment, the handle of her shopping bag snapped, spilling its contents onto the road. One of the drivers, who was waiting for her to clear the way, stepped out of their car. "What are you doing, you stupid fat cow?" he screamed. "Could you go any slower?" "I'm sorry," gasped Agnes and tried to pick up a tin of tuna. "Sorry?" the man yelled. "I'll make you sorry, you old hag." That was when a voice broke in. "Don't talk to the lady like that." Agnes saw it was a boy in his late teens, wearing torn jeans and worn-out sneakers. The boy ran to Agnes' side, holding out his hand to the waiting drivers, asking for patience. But the big burly man who'd been screaming wasn't placated.
Also, if you've not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these animal stories every day. Now, back to the story.
"What?" he shouted. "Is Snail Woman your granny? Get her the hell out of here. She should be in a retirement home." "Show some respect," the boy said. "This lady is doing her best and you're acting like an idiot." The man's face turned beet red. "You have some stones, kid," he cried. "You keep working your mouth and I'll feed you and your granny a double serving of knuckle sandwich." The boy turned his back on the ranting driver and started picking up Agnes' groceries. He started sticking them into the ruined grocery bag, and Agnes whispered, "Thank you." The boy smiled. He had a lovely smile, Agnes noticed. "You're welcome, ma'am," he said. "Always glad to help." "I wonder," Agnes said. "I don't think I can get my shopping home alone. Would you mind helping me?" "Of course not," the boy said. "I'd be glad to help." The boy picked up the bag and put one arm around Agnes and helped her across the street. The guy who had been screaming gunned his car and took off, narrowly missing Agnes and the boy. Agnes cried out in fright. "It's okay," the boy said kindly. "You're safe." Agnes led the boy to her house and offered him some coffee. "Would you like some cookies?" she asked. "I made them this morning." "I'd love some," the boy said. "My grandmother used to make some for me too." "What's your name?" Agnes asked. "You live with your grandmother." The boy said, "I'm Wade. I lived with my grandmother, but then she died. They put me in foster care. But when I was 18, that was it. I was on the streets." "Is that where you live now?" asked Agnes gently. "Yes," Wade said, blushing. "Look, I have a job, but it's not enough to pay for even a room. I'm taking some night courses so I can get a better job, but it's not easy." Agnes had a brilliant idea. "Listen, Wade," she said. "Why don't you come to live here with me? It's a big house, there's plenty of room." Wade was stunned. "Ma'am?" he gasped. "Are you sure?" You don't even know me. I know a kind soul when I see one, Agnes said. But don't think it's charity, Wade. I will expect you to help me with the shopping and with the dishes and to get good grades. Wade buried his face in his hands and broke down in tears. Agnes comforted him by wrapping her arm around his shoulders. Wade, don't cry, she said soothingly. You're home now, and everything is going to be okay. From that moment on, Wade and Agnes formed a close-knit family, always looking out for each other. Wade was no longer isolated, and Agnes finally had the grandchild she always longed for. Wade was stunned when Agnes updated her will, making sure that upon her passing, her small house, valued at $80,000, would become his property, ensuring that he would never have to worry about homelessness again.